the adrenal glands, and then you've got the testes, ovaries. What have I left out? So on most of the diagrams, they have this. Then the heart. So a lot of diagrams I found on the internet, they don't have the heart mentioned as part of the endocrine system.
And the brain.
Well, that's with the glands, isn't it? The pineal, pituitary.
Yeah, sometimes they might leave out the brain as being part of the endocrine system.
Okay, sometimes. Okay, yeah, okay. But that was really interesting. So we'll circle back to that. Yeah, so, yeah, I think I included all that. So my first question is to Alan, and they all work together to secrete these hormones. Yeah. Convert these hormones, I should say. So Alan mentions something called pregnenolone, which is a precursor to all hormones, and that's often not talked about. Okay, could you just mention a little bit about that for us?
Well, pregnenolone, as you asked the question before about it, you know, what actual part produces pregnenolone? You've got, in males, the gonads actually produce pregnenolone. You would think, well, why? How come? The brain produces it. You've got so many different different glands around the body all produce this pregnenolone, which is where all the other hormones come from. Your estrogen, your estradiol, your estrogens, progesterones, all the estrogens, all the family of estrogens, all get produced by this master hormone, pregnenolone. And if you're down on pregnenolone, you're going to actually have issues producing all the other hormones. And it's very highly based on fats, good fats. When you're younger, your body can utilize the fat before the age of 40 very easily. After the age of 40, it becomes more difficult, and people that become more concerned about their diets as they're getting older often become more carbohydrate focused rather than fat focused. And then the pregnenolone starts to break down, or starts to not be able to be produced the same, which then has all the other hormones are coming from it. Now, it's all to do with the frequency of the body producing these hormones, so that the receptors are not actually blocked.
Yeah. So we'll get onto that in a sec, Alan, if that's all right.
Yeah.
If that's okay. So, so I guess that explains a lot how women can produce testosterone, right? We don't have testes, and also men estrogen, and they don't have ovaries. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Because we all produce the same hormones, but different amounts from different organs.
Yes, right. Okay, so that's good to know. And from what conversations we've had in the past, it's about the receptor sites will take up what they need. Yeah.
Well, yes, because they can't take up another vibration because they don't harmonize with that particular hormone.
Yes.
It's not possible.
Okay. So let's circle back to that. So let's talk about estrogen first, okay? Because this is where there was conflicting research. So you've got phyto estrogens, which come from plants. Yeah. And I believe they're similar to our own estrogen.
Similar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Similar. Yeah. And then we've got which most of us know, the xenoestrogens. Yeah. Which are the synthetic xenoestrogens.
Yeah. Coming from, did you want to specify where they come from?
Yeah, well, that comes from the plastics. It comes from the herbicides, pesticides. It comes from the parabens, all of the petrochemicals in a cleaning and personal care products.
And also, don't forget the fluoride in the water.
Ah, yes.
Also, when you go swimming, what's in swimming pools?
Chlorine.
Chlorine. Chlorine's also in our water supply. That's also a xenoestrogen. And you notice a lot of people that swim indoor pools, they spend, like, especially instructors, you're looking at about 90%. Again, don't quote this. Do your research. You might find it's 80, might find it's 76%, whatever. A very, very high percentage of people that do swimming for a job, indoor pools, have thyroid issues.
Okay.
Because of the chlorine. It damages the thyroid. It hijacks the thyroid because it actually resonates with the receptors in the thyroid.
Well, that makes sense because I've been told to sort of counteract some of the effects of chlorine in swimming pools, because sometimes you can't get away from it, is to take like seaweed iodine.
Now
so that makes sense.
And it won't work in a lot of cases, because iodine and chlorine and fluoride, if you look on the periodic table, which I've got one over there, if I could drag it out. If you looked at the periodic table, you see all the different units going up and down like this, and then they also go across like that. The ones that are straight up and down, they actually have the same frequency, just different octaves.
Ah, okay. I didn't know that.
Your chlorine, your fluoride, and your iodine are all in the same line and have the same valence. So one can hijack another, which is when people have mercury in their fillings. If they're low on zinc, the mercury will actually take over or hijack that receptor.
Ah, okay.
And it's
right.
same when you're talking about swimming pools. You're going to have an abundance of chlorine, and it's going to hijack the receptor of iodine. And it's the frequency. If I had two tuning forks here in front of me, and this represented the endocrine system and the thyroid, and it's sending this signal out, it's humming. And it has to then be received by the actual the cell that's got this receptor on it that will receive it. So if this was iodine going into the thyroid and the frequency wasn't right, then this frequency isn't going to hear this one, because I have to go back a bit. And I think I've explained this many times, and a lot of people will know this. If this resonated with C and this resonated with the note C, they're tuning forks, and I hit it and it hummed, this one could be in another part of the room and it would then hum because it's the same frequency as this one. And that's called a sympathetic response, which is our sympathetic nervous system, because it resonates in sympathy with the one that vibrates the same. So if this is iodine and this is the iodine receptor, the iodine can actually see it because they resonate together and they dock, and the information will get. Well, hang on, let me just mute a few people. There's a lot of noise.
Oh, that's us. Oh, that's. Oh, yeah. Just be quiet.
Sorry,
sorry, she's getting toys out.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll come back to, if you're a swimming teacher, what supplements could you take?
Did that make sense?
Yeah. So we know that they're the messengers. The hormones are the messengers, right? That are sending a message, and they're looking for somewhere to dock. And you've got your cells that are going around the body, and they're specifically tuned. They're like have antennas, if you like.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. And they're looking for something that's going to fit them.
For the same vibration, the same music,
with the same
frequency.
The same frequency. Yeah. So then we're going to get into frequencies in a minute. Yeah. So I see. So a xenoestrogen, that frequency must be, like, the structure must be a bit similar.
It actually acts like the Joker in a pack of cards.
Okay.
Right? in some games, or the Joker can be the wild card. Now, that's exactly what happens. It actually acts, those xenoestrogens act like the Joker. Now, they can mimic any receptor.
Right. And so the body takes it up, right?
Those
and then
forks will alter their frequency, because it's like putting a bit of chewing gum onto one side, one arm of the tuning fork. It alters the vibration. It changes it.
So then the estrogen,
the other one comes.
So then the estrogen in your body, so your body's maybe thinking it doesn't need to produce any more because the receptor sites are full. Can you say that?
Yeah, kind of. Imagine,
because there's nothing for them to fit in if they're already plugged.
It's plugged, it's blocked. But what happens, just so you're taking a drug to help you sleep, you know how you got your serotonin, your melatonin, your epinephrine, and all of those happy, sad, sleeping hormones. What happens if you're having issues sleeping, and because this is blocked because of whatever chemical the person's been consuming or being exposed to, that hormone that stops you sleeping is actually being blocked by a xenoestrogen. So what happens when you take a drug to help counteract that problem? There's not just this one that's blocked. There's probably 10 million other ones of this that aren't blocked yet in and around other cells. So what happens, you take the drug finds another receptor, stimulates it, and they can go to sleep, but it blocks it and renders it useless for another one coming, right? So after a period of time, 12 months or so of taking that drug, maybe 2 years, all these other receptors are starting to get blocked in all of the hundreds of trillions of cells. And then you go back to the doctor and you say, doctor, that drug's not working anymore. And he says, oh, well, we need to change the drug to then resonate with other bunches of receptors so that they can then stimulate. You see, every time a drug, which becomes a xenoestrogen, attaches to one of these receptors, it renders it useless, blocks it forever until the cell apoptosis takes place, which is a programmed time to die. The cell then dies. Then the body, through the bone marrow, produces another one. And hopefully the body doesn't produce the same one that it just removed, because these hijackers alter the RNA and the DNA and the telomeres of the cell and may reproduce the same bad copy. Follow? This is why these xenoestrogens are so hideous in their action, and they're so precise. They're a target. They're a dart going to a target, and those vibrations of these tuning forks that are thousands of them all around every single cell, they are the target, and these xenoestrogens are the dart, and they go in and they block and block and block and block, and eventually the cell can't actually produce what it's supposed to produce, and apoptosis then stops. And apoptosis means it's programmed to die. It has to die to make room for the new one. But if that cell gets upset or alters its structure internally, and apoptosis no longer takes place, you now have a cell that's immortal. And you know what an immortal cell means? Another immortal cell, another immortal cell, another immortal cell, immortal, 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 a conglomerate of immortal cells, bigger and bigger. And what's that becoming? Tumor. You know, this is where your tumors are coming from, because these immortal cells are joining together in a particular organ, because the apoptosis is no longer taking place, because so many receptors are being blocked by so many chemicals. The cell no longer has a programmed time to die. So therefore it just keeps growing, and your body produces cells that are programmed to die, but these ones are not. And they just keep proliferating. So when you go in there in the medical system, they cut, burn, or poison, then the programmed time to die for those cells those are destroyed, but the other ones are still coming. That's why it comes back, 2 or 3 years later, once they give you the all clear. And it's a misunderstanding of the all clear, because that lump's gone, but those immortal cells are still immortal. More are being produced the more you take, and then they start spreading out in different parts of the body. So
okay, so that's a massive subject.
but this is why chemicals, xenoestrogens, which are coming in every single form you can imagine, are so detrimental to our natural.
That's really good to understand, because I know Dr. Dingle, he was talking about in South America, a lot of children that were going through early puberty because of xenoestrogens. They just got rid of all the chemicals in the house, and those children were able to normalize again. It was slowing it down. So it's the same when I was doing my research. I was looking into the graph of it had the average, it was female. I was mainly researching the estrogen, how it goes up, and then at what age it drops. And I started thinking about, well, is this graph based on someone who's been exposed to xenoestrogens their whole life? Because we know at the age of 30, progesterone drops, but does it have to be that age? Can we slow it down? Because I know in a lot of cultures that, even Mary Young, she got pregnant at 47 and then 50 something.
53, she had the first child. 54, yeah. And 58,
wow.
The last one. Because
what?
Gary balanced, 58. Gary balanced.
48 must be.
No, 52, 58. Yeah, 68. No, 58. She had the last child. 52 was Joseph, and 58 was Jacob. Yeah. Check it. Anyone else? Do your research. Someone go on Google quick, have a look, and send us your comment. I'm pretty sure. Unless my.
How old's her sons now? I don't think so.
Well, she's 75, I think, or 76 now.
75.
Jacob's I'd be 18 now. So go back.
75.
Yeah.
57, right. Yeah. In her late 50s. Wow. I didn't know it was that late.
And
Yvonne's saying 54, 58. Wow. Okay.
See, that's why Gary had to work with her pregnenolone levels, and that's why she drank liters of this during the pregnancy. Drank it, literally drank it. We're talking
amazing.
liters of clary sage.
Okay, so let's get on to the oils, and then we've got a few questions coming up, I think, there. So we'll get to those questions, but let's just... So clary sage, right. So in my research as well, there was conflicting. When I spoke to you, on the internet, people say that there's phyto estrogens in essential oils. And this is where it gets confusing. Because then I spoke to you and there's no phyto estrogens in essential oils, because people say clary sage, right? So can you talk to that? Because the way you explained it to me is the job of essential oils, and this is really important, is to clean the receptor sites. And I said, well, we've got Mr., so why do we have all these different names? And then it came back to, it made sense to me because of the frequency. So the intelligence of the frequency, because all our organs, I knew that already, have a particular frequency. So that's a question. Can you explain, phytoestrogens are present in clary sage, the plant, but they're not in the oil. Is that correct?
Yeah, correct. You don't get phytoestrogens come across through the separator when they distill. It won't get into the actual oil. Yeah, but you're right, because when Gary first planted the clary sage, a lot of the deer were having triplets and triplets and blah, 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 because it was actually stimulating their ability to produce more progesterone, or the progestation. Because progesterone during pregnancy goes up like 1,200 times higher than what it normally would be. So progesterone's never a poison. The natural progesterone is never a poison. But years ago, they used to produce pregnenolone. What's it called? The pregnant mare's urine. Haven't used these terms for years now because of the compliance. But pregnant mare's urine was the way they used to give women extra progesterone, and that was a synthetic form, and that caused a lot of issues because progesterone should be way up here. It should always oppose the estrogens. So it should be always kind of hammering the estrogens down during pregnancy, and the progesterone's got to be very high. But what happens, this here, the estrogen levels, as women are getting older, are all starting to go down. The progesterone and estrogen levels are starting to go down. Sometimes the body's not producing them, but most of the time the body's not receiving them. So the receptors are blocked. The body still can produce them through the endocrine system. Now what happens, you've got another one over here. Okay, and there's your estrogens, your xenoestrogens. What happens, at the same level down here, and then all of a sudden, hang on, I'm going opposite. This level goes up and up and up and up and up and up, and it goes up, and the xenoestrogens go up so high that they now oppose the progesterone and the estrogens. Now, this is what's causing the stimulation of different apoptosises that are not taking place anymore. Read between the lines what that's meaning, right? So your xenoestrogen, when you go to the doctor, they test you, oh, your estrogen levels are really high, madam. Well, okay, which estrogen levels, sir? No, they don't usually tell you, but it's the xenoestrogens that have gone up too high, not the natural estrogens, because they're all starting to wane as they're getting older, and the receptors are not receiving them because we're exposed to so many chemicals. Even your dishwashing, a lot of people have dishwashers these days. Stop putting Finish in the dishwasher. This is stupid. Finish is a xenoestrogen. Where does it go? Into your glass. This is not porous. Sorry, this is not solid. It's porous. If you leave something in here long enough, it will go into here it's solid. This is your clay. It will go into the clay. Your xenoestrogens in your Finish will go into your plates. It'll go into your steel. And you can prove that by stop using Finish in your washing machine and start adding the Thieves Household Cleaner. And guess what happens when you pour your glass out of your dishwasher, which is supposed to be clean? It's all smoky, all cloudy looking, and you've got to wipe it. That is the xenoestrogens coming out of your dishwasher going onto the glass. It takes 6 months to even clean that out of your dishwasher when you start using the Thieves Household Cleaner. So if you've got an older dishwasher that you've been using the standard chemicals, your stainless steel is impregnated with those chemicals. You're not washing them off. They're in there, impregnated within the metal. So when you start using the Thieves Household Cleaner, it starts to stop putting them back in to the steel, and the steel starts putting them back out into the water. And those chemicals then start sticking on your glass. So to clean your dishwasher out, you've got to use the household cleaner and use standard old sodium chloride salt, just some cheap stuff, and put it into the dishwasher to stop the smokiness of the glass. And you have to do that for about 6 months before you can before your dishwasher becomes clean of those chemicals. Now, if it's going into the steel in your dishwasher and you're eating off those plates and spoons and knives and drinking out of those cups, hot cups of tea and everything for 50 years, where the heck do you think that stuff's going? If it's going into the metal of the dishwasher, Well, duh, it's going into you. So for crying out loud, people got to stop buying those chemicals and start using pure stuff. Young Lemmy's got all the pure stuff for the dishwasher. And then people say to me, oh, where do you put a liquid? Think outside the box. That little door on the, when you open the dishwasher, that little tiny door in there that you stick the tablet, you don't have to stick the tablet in there. You don't have to put liquid in there. Tip it in the door. It's going to go into your dishwasher, right? It works exactly the same way. Don't get bogged down by reading the label. Like a lot of people say, how many, how long, how much? That's the medical system. How many, how long, how much? Am I going to overdose? We're not in that system. Use the common sense. Back to common sense. How much should I stick in the dishwasher? Oh no, I might try a cap, just a capful. Try a cap and see what happens. And then you're going to say, well, it's not, it doesn't clean my dishes the same. Well, if you're going to leave something on your dish that it sets rock solid and you've got to get a chisel to chisel it off your plate before you put it in the dishwasher, that's not sensible, because you're going to need some harsh chemicals to break down that solid rock that you've created on your plate. And the household cleaner is not going to do that, because it's not like, it's not one of those acids that actually eats things, right? It's an enzyme. It's not an acid. So just rinse your dishes and put them in the dishwasher. You don't let them sit solid. And then people say, oh, my dishes aren't clean, or they've gone smoky. Well, the smoky is the previous chemicals. And the stuff, there's reason it's not clean because you let it set like concrete before you stick it in the dishwasher. That's not sensible. Same thing with washing your clothes in your washing machine. People are still using Omo. People are still using those things, and we're wearing them, and you're sweating, and that stuff's going into your skin. Another xenoestrogen. You know, this everywhere.
Yes.
We're not aware of it. And they're using soap suds to wash their dishes. So many places have earth. Every time I go into someone's house, they've got earth dishwashing liquid next to their sink. What? WTF? Like, get rid of it. It's a xenoestrogen.
Yeah, it's a really bad one. Yeah. And that's often a blind spot, we know, for a lot of people, a lot of our members. And even the dishwasher has been for me. And I had a friend who uses the lemon oil for her as her rinse aid or whatever. So back to the blends that were developed, the sclerosants, the Mister, the Endoflex. So maybe we'll start with, should we start with the Endoflex?
Yeah.
So that has been, I don't know if we want to go into, there's something really interesting that you you talked about with me. We may as well go into it before we go on to the blends.
Yeah.
So the glands, where we have the glands, if you turn sideways, you can see that, or I don't know about the adrenals, but we know that the hormones that are produced in the glands, there's a relationship to the chakra system.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So the chakra system are shaped like a vortex. So it's from in going out. And you mentioned to me, and I'd sort of learned a little bit of this, but I didn't really, something clicked when I was speaking to you. So can you talk about what you said to me was these vortexes or the cone shapes, actually, when they go out, they're really massive, or they can be massive, like when we're working.
And that's why we're all connected. These energy systems interact with other people's energy systems, and they are literally they're like a funnel, like a trumpet. It's a huge, big funnel that goes out. And at some point, I mean, if you are able to see them, some energy devices, like with Linda's Indigo, you can literally see these trumpets. You can see the energies interacting with each other, and they're like gears in a gearbox. And if that's a gear and that's a gear, and you rotate them, they're both going to rotate because they're touching the spurs, right? But if you move one apart and this one turns, this one's not going to turn because it's not actually connected. These energy systems must be connected. There's one here, there's one in the throat, and these are going to go like this. And then each one is actually going to rotate the opposite direction. And it literally is like gears in a gearbox. And the reason why they energetically interact is because it's gaining knowledge from what you'll call the source field. The source field is where the energy of every human existence is put into the source field. The information is all in the source field. And I believe it is our creator that put it there. The Yeshua, the I am, put it there. And we have access to it. We have access to our creator through the system. And it's these energy systems that bring knowledge in to all of these energy points of the body. And what happens in the body when they are balanced? Balance means they are interacting with each other, the wheels within wheels. It's actually mentioned in the biblical text, these wheels within wheels, and it related it in the Bible. It related it to the candelabra, the table of showbread. Have you seen that? The Jewish candlesticks like that and like that.
Yeah.
And they've got candles on the tops. Well, originally those lights represented the energy systems of the body. So if you got that candelabra and held it with those going up here and you turned it sideways and pointed it at a person, it represented the lights of the body, the energy systems, which allowed the body to produce what David Stewart talked about in the Chemistry of Essential Oils Made Simple. He's got a whole chapter on the biotransmutation of minerals. And he explains this in that. And it's just beautiful to witness how this is actually happening. Biotransmutation means you could use a chicken as an example. A chicken does this all the time. You put a chicken in a pen and give it no calcium. It'll produce an egg, which is 100% calcium. Well, not 100%, but extremely high calcium. And it's had no calcium. That's what you call biotransmutation of minerals. It's creating calcium out of other minerals. It's a literal creation within itself, because we are creative beings. We've been given the ability to create, but our body innately does it. A worm does the same thing. You put a worm into the ground, and what goes in this end comes out different that end. It's a completely restructure of the chemistry of the soil. And that's biotransmutation. And this is how you mentioned this before, I think, Lisa, breatharians. Was that you? Yeah. Instantly, I mentioned biotransmutation minerals, and Lisa went straight to, is that how breatharians exist? And not many people put that connection together. So that was a great aha moment in my mind, that someone else is actually going, oh, is that how that works? Yes, that is how it works. When your energy systems are in line, biotransmutation takes place in the body. And this is where spontaneous healing happens, because the body's producing something it doesn't have. Automatically, you get healing. And that is a lot to do with why prayer works, because the prayer is accessing the source field of information through the I am, and the balancing of the system of these energy systems, allowing our bodies then to produce this biotransmutation, which is a gift.
A lot of sense, that whole heart mouth, because it's often the heart that's closed. So the heart wheel, for us to connect our head and our heart, if that's not large enough to connect and spin that wheel, that's very interesting.
Or it's over here and it's not connected at all.
It's disconnected, yeah.
And that's why meditation with prayer is probably the most important thing that any human being can do, because it's allowing our communication and allowing the balance to take place so that nutrients can be created within our body. And thank you to Yeshua, or the I am.
Yeah, it's interesting, because what I've studied in energy as well, I know that the Jewish religion in the is it Kabbalah? It's called the Sephora. Sephora.
Sapphire. Cipher.
Cipher. So if you turn the cipher sideways, it's the chakra system. So that's the same thing. Yeah. So that's really interesting. So how do oils now, how do they open up the channels? And then we'll get into the specific, people need to know like what they use for if they've got an issue. Okay.
Yeah. Well, the reason why we use oils is every organ in the body resonates at a particular frequency, somewhere between 62 million times per second and 78 million times per second. That's called the megahertz range. So somewhere between 62 and 78 is our frequency of homeostasis. And within these boundaries, you have every single hormone in the human body resonating somewhere within those boundaries. So the heart would resonate at X amount of frequency between those, and the liver and the kidneys and the blood and the heart and the brain, they all have their own resonance. And when you look in the desk reference, the Young Living's Essential Oil Desk reference, you'll notice different organs. It talks about different organs, and then they relate certain oils to organs. Now, the reason why it was so specific and why it's so accurate is because when they were doing their research, they were finding out that because the research was us, by the way. Gary would always put out an oil and he would say, look, I don't really understand why I've distilled this oil, but let's get some feedback. And people would be using the oils, and then they would send the letters in and they would compile all this information and say, oh, man, we've got 3,000 people that have all had this happen because they've used this particular oil. What's that oil related to? Okay, let's have a look. And they had, look, man, that's working on that particular organ. These oils are working on that organ. And then when they did the BT3, which is the Bruce Tanio frequency device made in Cheney University in Washington many years ago, it measured frequencies. It measured the protons, neutrons, electrons of the atom, and it gave it a number. And they found out that the number of the organ resonated with the numbers very close to the numbers of those particular tree oils. That's how the desk reference came into being. And that's why when you look at it, you see all these particular oils related to this particular organ. Like any oil that's got 1,8-cineol in it is related to lungs. You know, your eucalypts and your ravens, your Ravensara, your RCs, all the oil blends in the RC, all has a frequency of the lungs. And then you've got other organs like the thyroid have oils relating to the actual resonation of the thyroid. And so every organ had its own frequency, and that's where the desk reference came from, and that's why it actually works. So if you were to now use, okay, clary sage is a basis of a lot of hormone oils, right? A lot of the blends. That's the base. Now, people will say, well, like you're saying before about the phyto estrogens, there's no phyto estrogens in here, right? So then how does it work on the pregnenolone system? Well, all an oil is doing is removing, remember the receptors, and you've got a piece of gum stopping the frequency from resonating. So if this was in the reproductive area, this particular tuning fork, and it was causing endometriosis or causing your too much bleeding or not having a period properly or whatever, in that area is a lot of reproductive hormones in, between the belly button and the top of your legs. There's a lot of activity happening down there. So if those receptors in that area are blocked, they're not receiving the correct vibrations from the endocrine system sending out those hormones, the whole gamut of hormones resonating from the pregnenolone at the top of the triangle, and they all resonate down underneath the pregnenolone. All of them produced. You ever look on the internet, you'll find out pregnenolone, and then all the hormones are produced from pregnenolone. There's thousands of them. So when each receptor gets blocked from life in the reproductive area, what these are doing is removing the chewing gum off the tuning fork. It's not a hormone. but it resonates with the reproductive area of the hormones. That's why clary sage is so important for not, by the way, people say clary sage, that's just for girls. No, it's not. It's for men. Men need it as much as women because testosterone comes from pregnenolone, right? All this is doing is balancing and removing the chewing gum from all those gamut of thousands of receptors that are in the reproductive area. It's balancing them, it's removing the chewing gum so that they can resonate again to receive the hormones that have been produced by the endocrine system, the so many different organs in the endocrine system. So don't think that the clary sage is a precursor of progesterone or gives you too much estrogen. It's impossible because it isn't. It has no hormones in it, zero, nothing. And it won't cause a miscarriage. Not young livings. This is the most complicated essential oil in the world that we know of so far. It's got over 900 individual notes that make this oil up. It's very specific and very complex. This is why they call it a female oil, because it is so complex, right? But that's just a misnomer because men need it as much as women.
That's great, Alan, because that's where a lot of, I think, the confusion comes from when we're saying use this oil for this, and we get confused that it's because it's acting like that hormone, but that clears it up a lot. So that brings me on to the next thing, like oils that have been, well, we call it fractionated, but oils that have had like notes taken out and just have the active notes there. So this is when it's a completely different chemical structure now.
Yeah.
And I would think, like the medical system, they work with the actives, this equals this, right? Whereas in our system, it's more, we're going to clean up so that the body can do what it knows best to do and how to do. So if you're, in my mind, if you're using an oil that is the structure's changed, Ali, can you be quiet just for a minute? So will the body not know what to do with it? A bit like, bread that has changed and been modified and things taken out.
If I could, if I hope we had, well, man, we're running out of time. We've run out of time, darn it. If I could bring up on my screen a pianola piano, I'm going to have to. Hang on a minute. Let me share my screen for a minute. Okay, hang on. Share the screen. Can you still see my screen? You still see the screen? Hang on.
Yeah, I can see the screen.
Okay. Now, pianola piano. Let me just bring one of these up. Okay. Can you see this here? See that? See how it's moving past this actual line here? That's actually air, right? And when one of these little gaps touch that air, it actually makes a note on the piano go down and it makes a sound. Now, what you're looking at right in front of you there, that piece of paper of that piano, is this basically like a GC analysis, right? Now, I've actually explained this to the guys in the States that actually do the readings of the GCs, and they actually agreed. They went, wow, that is a very good way to explain to the common person what a GC is. That piano is reading notes through holes in a paper. So when there's a long, see that long one there? That long one, there it is, that long one plays a long note. And these little dots play little tiny short notes. Now that would represent different constituents, let's say in clary sage. Now there's also tenation or what's it called? Tenacious. No, not tenacious. Intonation. Intonation is the time of which you're playing it, and the way it's actually played gives you a song. Now, if you move some of these notes or make other holes in that piece of paper there, you're no longer going to understand what that song is that's supposed to be playing. And if I handed you that roll of paper and I wrote on it lavender, and I handed you that, okay, there's lavender. I'm handing you lavender. You're looking at the bottle and you're going, oh, okay, there's lavender. How do I know it's lavender? Oh, I've just got to go on what's written on the bottle. But if I could get this lavender and put it into the piano and start rolling this GC over those notes, I would hear if it was lavender or not. Does that make sense? Now, you can't do that with this. All you can do is put it through the 20 different tests that Mike Book and what Gary used to do to find out if this was real lavender or not real lavender. We can't put this into a piano and actually play it, but our bodies hear the vibration. Our bodies are the piano that you're putting this into. Does that make sense? And if those notes aren't right, anybody could fool you because you don't have a piano to play that what's in that bottle, but your body will feel it. And as soon as you remove notes or change that piece of paper and put extra notes or extra holes in the paper, it's no longer going to play that song. So now that song is a discord. It's a xenoestrogen song. Okay, I'll stop the share now. Did that make sense?
Wow. Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, I didn't know that's how they had xenoestrogens. Okay, very important.
Playing the wrong note, which then stimulates the body to produce the wrong information. It's the discord. The body feels it. You hear that internally. You don't hear it through the ears, but your body's reading those vibrations.
And I know now, I've seen people with special equipment that are able to see the music that flowers, for example, are making.
Yeah.
We can't hear it, but it's going on.
That's right.
So this is a whole nother, realm. Okay, we do have to wrap up, but we did have a few questions. So someone who's a swimming teacher, so what can they do? Because I used to, with my daughter, if she had to go into chlorine, I'd put orange oil, I heard, and purification on her feet. Like, what can we do to counteract that with the oils?
All I can tell you is what I do. I never, ever touch a pool that's got chlorine in it, full stop. I never go into spas. I never go into sauna. Sorry, saunas are okay. But
it is difficult though, because
I know it is. I know it's very difficult.
Well, when children are learning to swim, they're very far between where you can, have the water warm enough to, I mean, I live up the coast and they've just opened up a mineral pool without chlorine, but it's hard, so it's kind of like balancing. They have to know how to swim because they've got to, so
well, there's always wetsuits in the ocean or a stream or a dam.
Yeah, it's got to be warm enough. Yeah. I mean, but we need to know what to do because there are swimming teachers, and
it's trying to.
Anyway, we'll research that one.
Like having a shower with a raincoat on. How do I get clean if I got my raincoat on? Okay, I take my raincoat off, but then I don't want to take it off because I don't want to get water on my skin. It's a catch-22. I mean, there are oils, but you're going to continually blocking those receptors, and you go and use oils. You're just going backwards and forwards all the time. Maybe the answer is build a young living business, and you don't need to go to work in the swimming pools.
Yeah, or build a mineral pool. I know there's a lot of adults after it now.
There is options. It's just a bit more expensive to make pools like that or to do the filtering, but There's one up the road here that has a pool like that, and it's beautiful.
I think they're going that way.
Chlorine in it.
Renee asked, Ningxia Red, was this help balance the hormones?
In a nutrient term, yes, but if you want to be specific, if you want to specifies it, no, but it's all to do with all of the nutrients that's in Ningxia Red are a balance for the whole entire system. And it's very good for the eyes because of the rods and the cones and the zeaxanthin and the lutein. Now, hormones actually help to control zeaxanthin and lutein as well. But the Ningxia Red is specific to those, but it doesn't come through the hormone channel. So it's hard to answer that. The answer is yes and no. But I wouldn't not drink Ningxia because it wasn't directly related to my hormones. I would drink Ningxia because it's directly related to my eyesight, directly related to my heart and to my blood and to the viscosity. And there are phytonutrients in Ningxia Red. Right, so those phytos that you were talking about in the clary sage, it's not in the oil, but they are in the Ningxia Red. Food.
All right, yeah, we are out of time. We've gone over time, but maybe we'll do another one on the supplements supporting the hormonal system. Now that we know that all the organs have a vibration and the hormones, you know, you can't separate anything. So, all right.
Well, that's great. I don't know if we've got any chats in there. Probably, yeah, no, we're going to have to start because we've gone over time, miles over time. Bummer. But anyway, I hope it was useful. But great, Lisa. You've helped me keep on track.
And thank you. You've clarified a lot of things for me as well, because I couldn't get things clear in my head. So thank you, Alan. We really appreciate you. And thanks for tuning in, everyone.
This was recorded, by the way. I actually pressed the record button, but it is live on Facebook, so it's recorded on Facebook anyway. But if you want the recording as a YouTube, send me a PM, and I'll put this recording into a YouTube, and then you can have it as a link to share anywhere as well. Okay, thanks, Lisa. We'll talk to you next Sunday, and we'll do this again. See ya. Bye.